Hey, welcome back. Today, it's going to be more of a breakdown, behind the scenes type of thing. Just going over a spec project that I did with Lisandro from Lisandro Media. Nothing too special. I didn't bother naming or numbering this vlog because the vlogs and the BTS are sort of like blending in together and it's kind of hard to keep track. Granted, I've only done about 7 vlogs, but I figured the numbering isn't important. Depending on how much time this takes to explain or go over, I'll do 2 breakdowns. Otherwise, this will be its own breakdown. And today I'll be focusing on the Hernandez Mobile Detailing spec ad that I did with Lisandro from Lisandro's Media. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we start off with a wonderful drone shot. This was shot with Lisandro's drone. I forget which one he has, but this one was an interesting shot just because it wasn't shot in a log format. Lisandro, I think, shot it in I believe it was just like a standard, which I think goes by Rec 709. Nothing too special went on in like color grading it other than the fact that it didn't match most of the shots, or at least that the way that the project was set up. This was not an intended type of shot to be dropped in, and so I can go over that really quick. Now with this project, it wasn't set up like it normally is. I drew inspiration from this great colorist by the name of Cullen Kelly. Go watch his videos. He has lots and lots of gems. The idea with this project setup is that your Rec 709 and your LUTs live on the timeline. With the Rec 709 node, expecting anything that's DaVinci wide gamut. It's very robust, which allows for many different types of cameras to be dropped in and essentially contort to Rec 709. All you have to do is handle the camera node groupings, I guess, or the camera groupings. The timeline just simply has 2 nodes, the Rec 709, which, like I said, expects DaVinci wide gamut, and then it just simply outputs it to Rec 709, Gamma 22, and then the look LUT just to give it some nice punchiness. So like I said, the interesting thing about this is that we're expecting a camera type, typically a log, because we want to color transform it. So we're color transforming from a camera to wide gamut and then making all our corrections as needed per clip. And then from there, going from DaVinci wide to Rec 709 and then to our look LUT. But the fact that this one was not shot in log, when I turn everything off, it is a deep fried mess. And I was like trying to figure out what I was going to do to get around this, since the timeline was essentially like the global node that all clips were going to get. What I did is I sort of treated this as a Rec 709, transformed it into a DaVinci wide gamut, and I can just turn off the rest of these clips. And as you can see, simply turning it on already puts it in a better state. It's not deep fried anymore. And from there, all I had to do was just simply add my adjustment clips, which, you know, the exposure and the contrast was too punchy, so I turned it down. I think this was a little bit of color correction, or maybe more exposure values or primaries like adjusted. And then of course the sign was a little bit too dark for my taste. I feel like you could barely see what that even said. And I simply used a power window to lighten it. It's not the best looking power window. I'm pretty sure I could have dropped it a little bit lower, or the size, and it maybe wouldn't have looked as weird as, but yeah, you get this cool little lit up sign. So it just doesn't look so dark, and you know where he's going, to let people know that this guy means business. But yeah, that was sort of the thing here. And then there was an additional node for coloring just to match the clips together. Yeah, that was it. Another thing you might be noticing here is the fact that I am using parallel nodes. Parallel nodes are the greatest thing ever. I don't want to say it's a game changer because I hate that term. It's been pounded to the ground and overused by a bunch of influencers, but it is an amazing way of working with nodes. And I wish I could explain this better, but maybe for those who are familiar with Photoshop, it's the equivalent to like layers. A non-destructive way of color grading where everything is in layers, and then once you've done all the changes that you need to do, it all flattens out into one nice little file. That's like the best way I can describe it, as opposed to, say, a linear node style you are sort of basing your changes off of what you just did last. So for example, say you did some line work, you added color, and then you like flatten the image, and then you go, okay, now I'm going to add more colors and effects. So you add it, you flatten it, and you realize, oh dang, I think I went a little bit too dark. Let me raise the contrast a little bit. And so you're sort of like flattening your image, and then whatever was last done on that, you're sort of stretching and pulling and squeezing and doing all kinds of things to those values that may just get worse and worse. And you could essentially deep fry your image that way. And if I didn't do a good job at explaining this, I will just make a quick little diagram to explain, or maybe give you a quick little example. But yeah, anyways, that's the preface for how this whole thing was structured, is that it's expecting footage from different cameras that it's going to essentially spit out a Rec 709 with a LUT slapped on top. Parallel nodes are your best friend, and you could make it work with all footage, even non-log footage. That's sort of the TLDR of this little portion. But anyways, let's get back to the video. So this was a gimbal shot. All these cool panning gimbal shots were done with the FX3 on a gimbal. I believe it's the Ronin. I don't know which Ronin it is. I have to double check with Lisandro. So one of the interesting things about this shoot was that Lisandro and I shot it in a way where we were working separate but together, if that makes sense. I was shooting clips in a way that I thought would look good, or how I would frame it in my head, and then Lisandro did the same, mostly focusing on detail shots and gimbal, like whip pan stuff. So the idea though was that we would swap footage, and whatever we could use from one another we would, and we would create a video, and we would essentially provide 2 videos at the end of this, so that something to just kind of keep viewership going for his account. That's sort of the breakdown here. Was we were recording separately. I was focusing more on the, this is what your car can look like at the end. Look how clean this car looks. Look how shiny and new it looks. And I believe Lisandro was focusing on the procedures that were done to get to that. Essentially, he was focused on the process. I was focused on the outcome. And that was sort of the idea, that we were going to do it that way. But let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. Let's rewind it back to where he's opening the door. He actually came out in the shot for a little bit in the window reflection, but that's fine. It's gonna happen. So I love the shot of the tires getting cleaned. I don't know, there's just something about it that just looks really good. I'm not sure what it is, but this particular shot was done with the Blackmagic 6K. And if you haven't noticed already, we've already cycled through 3 different cameras if you include the drone in the beginning. And I'd like to think that I did a pretty good job at blending it all together, where you didn't notice that 3 different cameras were just used. But for the project, we did use the FX3 and the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. Both cameras provide great video quality, and oh, it just looks gorgeous. And I tried my best to match the 2 cameras together. It was a little bit tough because Lisandro and I, we just kind of immediately started shooting. This was actually one of the first shoots I think that we've worked on together, as far as I remember. And he can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm familiar with video editing and like video shooting because I used to do like home movies with friends, but I don't think I've ever worked with anyone else that knew about camera stuff. And so I went off and did everything at 60 frames. He did everything at 24 frames. We didn't white balance. We didn't color calibrate. We didn't do anything. And although it wasn't too hard to match, it did take a little bit of time in post to get the shots to match together, which is something we actually ended up correcting in a future shoot after this one. Lesson learned for sure, that we probably should have sat together, figured out the settings, the white balance, and just all of that before we got down to shooting. But it is what it is. So let's continue. For my video, I think I ended up using mostly Blackmagic footage, just because I was focused on like the outcome. But I think after this scene, oh, here's a good thing to talk about. Let's go back to the, so with this shot, there was actually a little scratch down here, which you can't see anymore because I removed it. It was one of those things where I didn't want the scratch to draw the viewer's attention away from the shot. Nothing special. I think I've talked about it before, but I did a patch replace on it, and it's actually on this unnamed node, which I should probably call patch or something. But if I turn it off, you'll see that there was just small little dings right there that were just a little bit distracting. I mean, you could barely see it from here at a distance, but I want people to take a look at a nice, shiny, clean car, and I don't want them to be distracted by this scratch. And so just simply did a patch replace and brand new again. So yeah, it was nothing crazy, but just like another idea that popped into my head when I was shooting is we should probably get rid of that. These shots were great. Unfortunately, they are a little bit choppy, and that goes back to the fact that they were shot in 24 instead of 60. I really wish they were 60, but like I said, we learned our lesson and we fixed that later on in a future shoot, which I can't wait to talk about because it's probably like the best video that we've worked on so far. And that's probably what, our second video, if you don't include the vlogs of us working on like a project. But yeah, but all the shots came out great. They look good. The tire scenes look good. And then of course we end it with a drone shot to show off the car, how clean it is. And then we pan out and then we show the logo. So that was it. Nothing too special, just little bumps and hiccups along the way. The only thing I will say is that I did try to do the optical flow fix for the 24 frames per second footage, but I think it just really hindered my computer. It really slowed it down, and I don't think it looked good because otherwise I would have kept it, but I think maybe it started like ghosting, or it just maybe started artifacting kind of weird, and I just gave up on it. Besides the me trying to figure out how to get non-log footage to work with this workflow and not white balancing and all that beforehand, I think this came out great. It was a fun shoot. It was really hot by like the time we were wrapping up shooting. It was super hot. Luckily, I had a hat in my car that I was able to put on, otherwise I would have burnt up. I think I actually burned a little bit. I think I knocked out for like an hour nap. It was crazy, but it was fun. It was a fun shoot, and I had a lot of fun doing it. The only other thing that was sort of a problem at the end was the fact that maybe it wasn't clear enough that we were going to produce 2 videos for him. And so I don't know if he thought he had to choose one over the other, or he simply liked one over the other. Lisandro made his own, I made my own. I personally don't think that they were very similar at all, but we did start and end the shots both with the drone shot coming in and then the drone shot coming out, zooming out to reveal the logo. The video that he went with went on to get about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 plays, which is amazing. That's probably nothing for Lisandro. He gets like on the average, like what, 1,000 to 2,000. He's seen that before. My video hit about 500 or 700 plays, and that's probably the most I've ever gotten on a video. So I was excited to simply have gotten that many plays to begin with. So I was pretty happy about it. Bummed and happy. Happy that it got actually some good traction online. Bummed that it wasn't also used for the shoot, but it's fine because this is a portfolio shot. This is a spec ad. It's simply just to get some experience under my belt, but I was happy with it overall. Now, the only other thing I'll say about this video is that I shot it in a way where it could be repurposed as horizontal or vertical. It could go both ways. And it was simply by shooting horizontal most of the time, but having a 16:9 aspect ratio in the middle so that I could frame my shot for both vertical and horizontal content. So if we go to resolve really quick, you'll see that I have a horizontal version and it looks just as good. It works for both. And the fact that Lisandro shot horizontally, it still worked out and it looks good. I probably could have punched in on this shot a little bit more. But yeah, the fact that it could work as a horizontal ad or a promo is great. And that's something that we kept in mind when shooting the following project. So as you can see, it all works. It all simply worked. And I know I keep talking about, oh, the next project that we worked on was even better. So I'm just going to end it here because I just want to keep this short and sweet. It was a small breakdown, small little behind the scenes, and a little bit of resolve tips and tricks that I'm probably not qualified to give. So yeah, that basically wraps up the breakdown of this video. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you have any tips for me, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you again next time.